Content creator laptops are a rare thing to find. Mostly, you'll go for a gaming laptop because they're the ones with the best hardware for the job. But Gigabyte's new AERO 15 OLED is a game changer in this aspect. The AERO 15 OLED is a Gigabyte's slimmed down studio laptop that does look all nice and sleek, but definitely packs a ton of horsepower underneath the hood. Now, we did already take a look at a few other AERO 15 laptops before, but the OLED is their new top of the range version with a beautiful screen for the main feature. Now, the AERO 15 OLED has been around for a while, but this is the new one with the 10th generation Intel CPUs and the super version of the 20 series GPUs from NVIDIA. Specs-wise for our AERO here, it does have an 8-core 16-thread i7-10875H that can turbo boost up to 5.1 GHz. Your GPU options range from a GTX 1660 Ti all the way up to a 2080 Super Max-Q Studio. For memory, you do have two DDR4 SODIMM slots that are currently occupied up to 16 gigs, but you can upgrade that all the way up to 64 gigs. But we'll get into that a bit later. For storage, you get a space for two M.2 NVMe SSDs. And then finally, for pricing, the AERO 15 OLED is around $2,700 on Amazon, or only a mere 56,000 Rand on Dreamer Tech here in South Africa. Now, even though this isn't the cheapest, it is very well balanced between all of the other thin and light creator laptops on the market. Also, all those specs crammed into a laptop that's only 20 millimeters thick and weighs only 2 kilograms is honestly a content creator's dream. So then for the thin body, you do get this very sleek matte black aluminum shell that definitely does not feel cheap. It still attracts fingerprints, but not as bad as some others. At the back of the display, you do get the white AERO logo, which does look very stylish. Now, a small little touch they added is that the AERO badge at the back of the laptop does have two little white LEDs shining onto the logo. It kind of looks like a car's number plate, which I found to look actually pretty cool. Then as for I/O, you do get a good amount for this thin body, and if you really wanted to, you can also get a Thunderbolt 3 hub for even more options. On the right side, it does get a bit cluttered as most of your ports, included your power connector, does sit there. Now, as a content creator, I do appreciate that Gigabyte did include a full UHS 2 SD card reader where you don't need to have any additional adapters or anything. It's built into the laptop, and I'm glad to see, because a lot of companies do take that out now, and yeah, I honestly do need that for all of my work. But now, when lifting up the screen, which you can also do with a single finger, you are greeted with a per key RGB backlit keyboard. The switches do have a nice, soft and silent key press that I had no issues using for writing numerous of reviews already. The more medium-sized trackpad was also honestly pretty much perfect with a smooth and precise tracking. But for extra security, you do also have a fingerprint reader on the trackpad, and also it does feature Windows Hello with the webcam. Now, as for the main feature, which makes this laptop stand out above pretty much all of the other laptops, and that is the 4K 15.6-inch Samsung AMOLED display. And honestly, the screen is just breathtakingly beautiful. For the color accuracy, it's calibrated by X-Rite Pantone, with the screen having a color accuracy of 100% for the sRGB color space, 98% for the Adobe RGB color space, and have a Delta E rating of 1.39. So colors just pop with this screen, and it looks honestly so good. Every time I walk past the laptop, it just draws in my attention of how vibrant and powerful the colors are on this display. I honestly really need it now. But now, if you are just looking for a gaming laptop, yes, you will be able to game, and it's going to look honestly breathtaking again with all of the colors, especially if you play a game that does have very nice, vibrant colors. But again, this is a 4K display, so you will need to lower the quality somewhat, or you'll need to play on 1080p, but the colors is still going to be very bright with the AMOLED display. Now currently this is the most accurate screen here in the studio, and pretty much all of us here would rather take this display than a high refresh rate display that you would use on a gaming monitor. For us, this just looks so much better, and even though it's only 60 Hz, it's enough for gaming, and for the content creator side, it's just honestly so good. Now, the only bad thing about the display is that the hinges do kind of wobble a bit around, so if you do wobble your table, if it's not the most secure table, it does wobble somewhat, so that's the only bummer for the display. Now moving on into the speakers, you do get a 2-watt bottom front firing speakers that was decently loud and crisp, and it was above the average laptop, but because it doesn't have a sub, the bass was a bit lacking there. Moving on to the webcam, you do have a 720p nostril viewing webcam, but it does also have a privacy slider, so if you're scared about Mr. FBI guy spying on you, you can always just hide that. And it also keeps the bezels at the top nice and thin, which I honestly do appreciate. Then just before we get into performance, let's talk about cooling, because that's usually a problem with these thin and light high performance laptops, especially if you don't have an aircon like we have. For the cooling solution, you do have air intakes on the side and exhaust on the bottom of the chassis. The AERO 15 has 2 fans, one for the CPU and one for the GPU. On idle, the CPU hovered around 42 degrees and the GPU at around 44 degrees. The fans on idle aren't completely silent, however, you do have a slight hum. It's not too loud, but you will definitely be able to hear it if you are close by. When on max fan settings though, they do really come to life, as they do get quite loud, but that is also the case with most other Gigabyte laptops and also gaming laptops in general. To help with the cooling, they do ramp up quite a bit. But now when running a CPU only Blender workload, the CPU jumps up to around 70 degrees and it does drop clock speeds to around 3.2 GHz on all cores. And for the GPU only firmware stress test, the GPU reached a max of around 68 degrees. So then jumping into performance, we do have the RTX 2070 Max-Q Studio model here, again with the 8-core i7-10875H. Now I was able to run pretty much every game on a max settings, where it did range around 80 to 170 FPS in 1080p, and on 4K it did struggle there, but it was definitely playable, and you can lower some of the settings if you want to majority play the games in 4K. But the more synthetic benchmarks like Firestrike did also do quite well, and more productivity benchmarks was also quite good on the 8-core CPU. Now when rendering a video that we edited in Premiere, we took a 65GB project and it rendered in just over 6 minutes, which wasn't too bad. Now overall, the performance was definitely good for this thin and light laptop. By looking at the benchmarks, it does seem that the AERO 15 does hit the power limit, however, for the RTX 2070 Max-Q before the thermal limits. The same can be said for the CPU, just reaching over the 45-watt TDP. So power was the majority of the limitation here. Then finally for the battery, you do get a quite large 230-watt power adapter and a 94-watt-hour battery. Now I'm still kind of a bit sad that Gigabyte took out the USB port on the power adapter. It was a nice inclusion on some of their older laptops where you can just quickly charge your phone or something through that for higher power. But for the newer models, unfortunately, it's not there anymore, which is a bummer. But as for the battery, it did last only 1 hour and 10 minutes on a heavy workload, but for media consumption, it did last over 5 hours from just the battery on power saving mode. So then, in conclusion, the new AERO 15 OLED is probably one of the best content creator laptops on the market right now. The screen is just honestly so amazing, making the color grade just a pure delight. The i7 did pack a good punch, and I was glad to see that there wasn't any thermal throttling going on. You could possibly even go up to the i9, and that should also still be fine, which I'd rather say maybe you take a look at. The 2070 Super did also do a decent job all around, and I didn't really have any complaints over that. I must say that I was also kind of surprised with this machine, especially that screen. I honestly don't know if there's currently a better laptop with a better screen on the market right now. So if you're a photographer or an animator or a video editor or anything like that, and you're looking for a laptop that's powerful and most importantly does have a very good screen, then definitely check out the AERO 15 OLED. It might even come out with the new RTX 3000 series GPUs a bit later as well, so definitely maybe check that out if you want to wait for that. But overall, it's still a powerhouse of a laptop, and if you want to get it for yourself, definitely check out the link in the video description. Big thanks to Gigabyte South Africa for sending the laptop over for review. And if you guys enjoyed this review, please like, share, comment like always. I will check all of you next time. Cheers, guys.